The secret of the F-65's ultra-high resolution lies in a crucial component inside the camera body. The image sensor captures light and turns it into a digital image. Sony was once known for conquering the world with revolutionary products like the Walkman and compact video cameras. But for the past decade, the company has been struggling to deliver the next big thing, and its performance has slumped. Now, Sony is hoping to make a comeback with its ultra-high-definition technology.
Sony's leadership in digital imaging is grounded in our continuous development of superior image sensors.
Sony began developing image sensors in the early 1970s. Its engineers were committed to surpassing the world's highest standards of image quality. 40 years later, the company is building on its experience to produce a wide range of high-performance imaging devices.
We thought people would be really thrilled to shoot such amazing photos with this camera.
We're trying to go beyond the definition of film, even beyond the human eye.
Sony is betting its future on digital imaging technology. Today, we'll explore the realm of digital imagery. Digital technology has completely changed the way we see the world. Not too long ago, using a film camera was the only way we could take pictures. TV programs like this one relied on bulky and expensive analog video cameras and transmission systems. All that has changed with the advent of digital sensors that have replaced film and other analog capturing devices. Today, digital cameras are ubiquitous, and the technology behind them is advancing at lightning speed. High-definition video, or HD, became the latest standard barely a decade ago. And very soon it'll be replaced with ultra-high definition, or 4K and 8K UHD. We'll tell you all about this new paradigm in imaging, how it works, what it means, and why Sony is betting its future on it. To find out more about 4K, we visited Sony City in Tokyo's Osaki district. We were greeted by product planning manager Motoi Kawamura. That is a beautiful television set.
Thank you.
And this one is made for consumers.
Yes, starting next month. This is a 65-inch 4K TV.
How does this 4K picture compare with HD, for instance?
Actually, this 4K picture has 4 times the detail, or 4 times the number of pixels compared to an HD. Let me show you the difference.
All right. So here we have HD and 4K. I think it's quite easy to say, this one I will say is 4K on my left, and on my right, this would be HD.
You got it.
Now, although this HD picture is quite good, I could see almost an artificial clarity to this picture, whereas the same picture on the 4K screen looks a lot smoother and also much more detailed.
So the difference of the definition is much more apparent if we take a look at this shot of a newspaper. Please look at the HD image here.
I can't read that.
No.
That is just all fuzzy.
Yes.
There's no detail there. I cannot read the small print.
And then comparing it with a 4K TV.
Oh, now that is just as if I had the newspaper open before my eyes. I can make out every detail, every dot on every eye.
Yes.
That's very clear.
Yes, it is clear. So we have 4 times the numbers of the pixels, which means the pixels are much smaller, 4 times smaller than the HD TV. So that's why we don't lose any detail on a 4K TV.
Right. In 2012, Sony launched an 84-inch television capable of displaying images in 4K. And in April this year, it announced the launch of 2 smaller and more affordable 4K models with screen sizes of 65 and 55 inches. Sony says it wants to bring the superior image quality of cinema into the living room. 4K is now just coming into the market. So how is Sony thinking about introducing this technology to consumers around the world?
So we started selling the 84-inch. It's a large, big screen. But now we are going to introduce smaller size screens, 65 and 55-inch, so that it will fit into normal sized living rooms. So that is one strategy that we pursue. Second is that we are developing cameras and also TVs and also 4K projectors. So from the camera's lens to the living room, we do have a total strategy there.
That's amazing. Now, I remember not too long ago, standard definition was the world standard. That was replaced with HD barely over a decade ago, and now all of a sudden 4K is coming in to the market, and it will become a standard very shortly. What is the future looking like?
Okay, so 4K is just a part of pursuing reality, and Sony is pursuing reality in different ways. For example, we are going to enrich the colors, and also we are going to enhance the sound quality of the TVs as well.
So it's only going to get better.
It is going to be just better.
The most crucial component of high-resolution digital TV and motion picture cameras is this image sensor. It's placed behind the lens where the film was before cameras entered the digital age. Light comes through the lens and leaves an impression on the film. Photographic film is a strip of celluloid coated with an emulsion of light-sensitive silver halide salts. When the light hits the film, it creates a chemical reaction that becomes the image. So analog technology relied on a chemical reaction. Now, in a digital camera, an image sensor replaces the film. The light comes through the lens, and the image sensor converts that light into an electronic signal. The signal is then recorded either on magnetic tape, a disc, or a memory card. The process is similar to what happens in the human eye. Light enters through the cornea, passes through the lens of the eye, and hits the retina. Photosensitive cells on the retina detect shapes and colors. That information is carried through the optic nerve in the form of a weak electric current to the brain, where the impulses are decoded to form the material world we see. Sony started developing image sensors in the 1970s. In 1980, it succeeded in commercializing the world's first video camera equipped with an image sensor. The resolution of this first digital camera was a mere 110,000 pixels. How did the technology evolve from 100,000 to 30+ million pixels? Here's a bit of history. Sony's Atsugi Technology Center is located in Kanagawa Prefecture, about a 1-hour drive from Tokyo. This is where engineers conceived and developed Sony's very first image sensor and the generations of sensors that followed. Sony's first digital video camera is also kept here.
This camera was mounted on an All Nippon Airways 747 jumbo jet. It was equipped with our first CCD image sensor. That was in 1979, and it marked the start of our commercialization of image sensors. The sensor is located deep in the camera. Its legendary code name is the ICX-008.
The ICX-008 had a resolution of 110,000 pixels and took 6 years to develop. Shigeyuki Ochi was put in charge of the sensor's development project at Sony. Ochi had joined the company in 1962. In 1970, an academic research paper caught his attention. Out of Bell Laboratories in the United States came a seminal article on the theory of charge-coupled devices, referred to as CCDs. The report described how silicon could be made to convert light into an electronic signal. At the time, semiconductors were used mainly to make electronic circuit boards and speed up the functions of early computers. Sony had just developed its first office computer in 1967 and was already manufacturing semiconductors. Before the invention of the CCD, video cameras relied on a device called the pickup tube to convert an optical image into an electrical signal. The pickup tube was very fragile and difficult to miniaturize. The semiconductor CCD had several advantages. It could be made tremendously smaller, and it was much more resistant and durable. Ochi became convinced that semiconductors could revolutionize the camera industry. With the support of his colleagues, Ochi started experimenting on a CCD during his spare time, often working late into the night. The first step, he thought, was to create a tiny square photoactive window called a pixel. Ochi started off with 64 pixels laid out side by side in a grid fashion. He arranged them to represent the letter S for Sony. The vice president of Sony at the time, Kazuo Iwama, got wind of Ochi's research. He decided to officially approve the CCD project and to mobilize the company. Iwama was so convinced that his engineers had stumbled on a revolutionary idea that he told them not to worry about a return on investment until the 21st century. Research and development turned out to be a long, difficult process. In 1979, 9 years after Ochi set his eyes on the Bell Labs article, Sony completed its first 110,000 pixel CCD sensor. In June of the following year, Sony released its first CCD video camera. All Nippon Airways bought the camera and put it on its planes to show pictures at takeoff and landing. ANA passengers were impressed. Sony was the first company to commercialize a camera equipped with a CCD image sensor. Technology continued evolving in leaps and bounds until 1989, when a new camera took the world by storm. The CCD TR55 was the smallest video camera of its time. CCD image sensors made their way into digital cameras and other types of professional equipment. They became a core business for Sony. The company dominated the global market with a share of more than 50%. In the late 1990s, the pace of technological evolution accelerated beyond Sony's expectations. Digital cameras were finding their way into mobile phones, a step first achieved in 1999. The image sensors in those cameras were not CCDs. Other companies had moved away from CCDs and developed a new type of sensor. For the first time, Sony started lagging behind. The new sensor was called Cmos, short for complementary metal oxide semiconductor, and it gave Sony a run for its money. In 2004, Sony decided it had to take a completely different course of action. From now on, it would focus its resources on developing a new type of image sensor. Hiromichi Matsui spent his entire career studying image sensors. He describes the impact CCD technology had on camera-equipped mobile phones.
It became clear to me that we were entering an age of faster, more energy-efficient image sensors. The whole industry was moving in that direction.
Mobile phones called for more energy-efficient cameras. CCD sensors consumed a lot of power, but they
Let me draw a cross-section of a pixel. This is the borderline between the silicon photodiode and the surface of the pixel. Until now, wires and all kinds of other things were placed above the diode. The light finds its way in, but it's obstructed by the wires. So the amount of light that reaches the diode is weakened.
The normal process for building an image sensor is to place photodiodes on a silicon wafer. Above each diode come the wires and the microlens. Let's compare both types of sensors. The Cmos sensor has a complex structure with a lot of wires running over the photodiode, so the light coming in gets bounced around and less of it reaches the diode. The CCD sensor has a simpler structure with fewer wires, so more light gets in. Therefore, a CCD sensor is more sensitive than a Cmos sensor.
At the time, Cmos sensors had a reputation of delivering poor image quality. Sony couldn't afford to let any of its competitors claim the top spot in terms of image quality. We'd been working in this field all along, so it was clear to us that we had to be #1 in the field of Cmos sensors as well. That was imperative. The most difficult part of the process was to make the silicon wafer thinner, from hundreds of microns thick to just a few microns. But if something goes wrong in the process, even a little bit, we could end up damaging the surface of the photodiode. That would make an inferior image sensor that produces a lot of noise and other problems.
So achieving back illumination is a delicate process. But how do they do it? First, photodiodes are applied onto a silicon wafer and wires are laid over the diodes. The wafer is then turned upside down. The silicon wafer is shaved down to the surface of the photodiodes so that light can pass through unobstructed. The diodes are only 3 microns thick, so the slightest error could damage them and render them useless. Once the wafer has been shaved, lenses are fitted on. Then a new supporting wafer is installed on the bottom. This is the secret behind Sony's highly sensitive cameras. It took the company 6 years to develop the technology to shave down the wafer and succeed in mass-producing the sensors. Sony called its new back-illuminated image sensor the Xperia R. The first camera to feature the sensor was the HDR Handycam, released in 2009. It was twice more sensitive than any other camera on the market. It became popular for its ability to capture clear images in low light.
The difference was particularly visible when shooting night scenes. Normally, if you were shooting a building at night, for instance, all you'd see was mostly noise. But with this new type of sensor, the noise had almost completely disappeared under the same conditions. It was really impressive.
Sony now builds Cmos image sensors for a wide variety of applications, ranging from motion picture cameras to mobile phones. In value terms, the company has become the world's #1 with a 25% share of the global market. And Sony's engineers are working on taking their technology to the next level. In January 2013, Sony unveiled its latest smartphone, the Xperia Z. Its onboard camera boasted an even more advanced Cmos image sensor. The image on the left shows a photo taken with an older smartphone model. The intensity of the light in the background created a high-contrast image, darkening the objects in the foreground. The picture taken with the Xperia Z on the right manages to catch all the details. The sensor is only 4 millimeters square, but it packs 13.1 million pixels, and it achieves the best picture quality of all the smartphones around. How did Sony make the sensor so tiny? Conventional image sensors have the pixels and circuitry on the same plane, sharing the same wafer. That limits the space available for adding more pixels, which limits the sensor's definition. So the engineers came up with an idea. Separate the pixels and circuits and stack them one on top of the other on 2 different wafers.
I think the whole idea came rather naturally.
Engineer Shunichi Sukegawa is one of Sony's top specialists in the field of semiconductors. Even for someone as experienced as Sukegawa, the stacking concept was difficult to figure out.
The problem is here and here. How to connect these together?
There are as many connections as there are pixels. Even if just one circuit fails, the image will be flawed. Sukegawa emphasizes the degree of difficulty of the task he was faced with.
To give you an idea of the scale, we're talking about the width of a few hairs on a baseball field. It requires the technology to align the components with no margin for error.
The connection between the pixel and the circuit requires a precision of 1 micron. Painstakingly, Sukegawa and his team found a way of achieving that connection. In the end, Sony engineers produced one of the tiniest but most powerful image sensors in the world, putting Sony back in the lead of the industry.
Our success is the result of the experience we accumulated since the development of the first CCD sensor. This knowledge can be put to use in many other applications, like the development of laminates.
In April 2013, Sony and optics and medical device manufacturer Olympus established a joint venture. Endoscopes are an essential tool in medical diagnostics and surgery. Sony's stacked sensor technology, like the Xmor sensor, is expected to play an important role in the medical field. It's clear that image sensors will stay at the forefront of Sony's perpetual quest for innovation. Japan has long been at the forefront of digital imaging technology. Today, while virtually all television broadcasting in the country is in HD, engineers are working on the next generation of high-definition broadcasting technology. In the mid-1990s, long before HD became the standard, public broadcaster NHK had already begun developing a format called 8K Super High Vision. The quality of digital images depends on the number of pixels that make up the image. A high-definition image has 2 million pixels. A 4K image has 8 million pixels. And 8K has 16 times the number of pixels of an HD image, an astounding 33 million pixels. This is what an 8K TV camera looks like. This model was developed by NHK in cooperation with other broadcast equipment manufacturers. Transmission tests in 8K have been conducted. In February 2013, NHK and a cable TV company succeeded in transmitting 8K images and displaying them on an 85-inch monitor designed as a prototype for home use. Japan's ministry in charge of communications plans to begin 8K broadcasting tests in 2016 and full-fledged broadcasting in 8K in 2020. To this end, the Japanese government is spearheading the creation of a consortium that brings together broadcasters and electronics manufacturers, including NHK and Sony. Together, they'll develop the necessary technology and infrastructure to make 8K broadcasting a reality. Sony is counting on its unrivaled superior image sensors to bring the company back to its former glory. Ultimate success will require the development of new markets and of products that capture the imagination of consumers worldwide. That's not an easy task in the 21st century with its globalized economy and unprecedented pace of technological innovation. The company is facing this challenge under what it calls the One Sony corporate strategy. Sony was born in 1946 of the ashes of post-war Japan. Its co-founder, Masaru Ibuka, wrote the following words in the company's founding manifesto. To establish an ideal manufacturing company that fosters a spirit of freedom and open-mindedness. Ibuka's intention was to rebuild Japan through the power of technology. Sony went on to captivate consumers worldwide with top innovative quality compact products such as the Walkman and the passport-size Handycam. The success of its products made Sony the world's #1 electronics maker. But in recent years, with a sluggish economy and rising competition, its sales began to plummet and the company recorded record losses. It also lost its ability to innovate. What it needed was a serious restructuring. The task of pulling Sony out of its slump fell upon Kazuo Hirai.
I believe we need to bring Sony back to what it was in the old days, a company that puts its heart into manufacturing. We have to change and let innovation spearhead the creation of new products.
September 2012. The stage is set for the launch of a much-anticipated new Sony product, one that will point the way forward in the company's quest for excellence and customer satisfaction. The Cybershot Dsc Rx1, the smallest and most powerful digital camera in its class. Its $2,500 price tag puts it out of the reach of most consumers, but it proves Sony's renewed ability to innovate and its desire to put quality back into its brand.
The concept of this camera is to pack an unprecedented level of image quality in the palm of one's hand.
Developing the RX1 was a daunting challenge. It implied fitting a large image sensor normally used in bulkier SLR cameras into a compact digital camera. The RX1 packs a 35mm full-frame sensor. Its surface is 30 times larger than sensors normally used in compact models. The RX1 marks Sony's return to its core corporate philosophy.
We felt the urge to once again appeal to the world with a product that showcases Sony's advanced technology. That's where we found our strength.
The idea of developing the RX1 came from Sony's engineers themselves. An elite task force was created, bringing together the best minds from several departments. Their mission was to imagine and develop a truly exceptional product.
We need to coordinate with the manufacturing team and plan ahead every step of the way. Otherwise, we'll end up facing all kinds of difficulties.
Yes, so we are making adjustments every day, all the way up to the production phase.
At Sony's Atsugi Technology Center, engineers worked diligently.
So what do you think of the image quality?
They needed to improve the quality of the image sensor. Their aim was to deliver the best picture quality on the market.
There's much less noise.
We've pretty much reached the upper limit for a compact camera. As you can see, the image quality is quite good.
Yasuhiro Ueda heads Sony's image sensor division. He's a veteran engineer with 30 years of experience.
I recommended this sensor because Sony's foremost objective is to allow people to shoot high-quality pictures. But I certainly didn't expect our team to fit it into such a compact body.
Masaaki Oshima led the camera design team. He says he had high expectations from the very start.
Since the objective was to take good pictures, the image sensor, naturally, had to come first. We decided to use our very best device. We kept talking about how exciting it would be to see these great pictures coming from such a compact camera. So we said, let's do it.
Fitting a full-frame sensor into a small body was one of the most difficult problems the engineers had to solve.
Here's the lens, the body, and the image sensor. In this camera, we changed the assembly order.
The standard procedure is to combine the lens and the image sensor first, before fitting them into the body. But the RX1 sensor is too large to pass through the body. Engineers had to devise a completely different approach to assemble the components.
So what we did was we put the body between the lens and the image sensor. This implied taking the body inside the clean room and assembling it together with the lens and sensor. Now that's extremely difficult to do.
The assembly of the lens and image sensor is performed in the sanitized environment of a clean room to shield the electronic components from dust particles. This was unheard of in the industry.
We're talking about assembling components on a scale of microns. This is something only very skilled workers can accomplish. Automating this process wasn't really an option, so if you ask me to what degree this camera is handmade, I'd say pretty much from start to finish.
As the release date drew closer, Ishizuka, project manager for the RX1, paid a visit to company president and CEO Kazuo Hirai. He came to report on his team's last-minute efforts to improve the quality of the camera.
Why don't you try it?
Wow, it's much better. You were right.
The details are much more vivid. You can see it in the texture of the woman's skin and the fabric of the kimono.
Kazuo Hirai was convinced his team of engineers had created a product that embodies the Sony spirit. Sony says its efforts have paid off. It says it was flooded with advance orders for the RX1 and that production increased beyond expectations. We can only hope that the success of the RX1 will lead the way for Sony to do what it was once known best for, developing innovative quality products at affordable prices.